Papa Day. The Committee on Health, Land, Justice, and Culture is now called to order. Today is Monday, February 22, 2021. The time is 5:32 p.m. Notices for this confirmation hearing were disseminated in accordance with the open government law via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets on Monday, February 15th, and again on Friday, February 19th, 2021. The notice was also published in the Guam Daily Post on Monday, February 15 and Friday, February 19th, 2021. This Zoom meeting is hosted by the legislature's MIS and AV staff, and I thank them for their assistance. The host of this meeting will mute all Zoom participants until called upon by the chair. Individuals testifying are asked to begin by stating their name for record-keeping purposes. We have two agenda items tonight, two appointments. One is the appointment of Jesse U. Baleto to serve as a member, general public representative to the Guam Board of Social Work for a term length of 3 years to fill the seat of Mayfei Muko, whose term has expired. The second item on our agenda is the appointment of Nonito V. Blas to serve as a member of the Guam Land Use Commission for a term length of 5 years to fill the seat of Conchita Bathen, whose term has expired. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of my colleagues in this Zoom hearing with us today, beginning with Senator Tony Ada, Senator Terlaje, and Senator Joanne Brown. Thank you, colleagues, for being here today. So we'll begin now with the appointment of Jesse U. Baleto to the Guam Board of Social Work. His appointment is for a term length of 3 years, beginning December 10, 2019 to December 9, 2022, to fill the seat of Mayfei Muko, whose term has expired. Before we hear from the panel, I'd like to first read some of the mandates in law for the Guam Board of Social Work. The board shall be responsible for the control and regulation of the practice of social work, including but not limited to the licensing by examination or licensure transfer of applicants, the renewal of licenses, determining the appropriate fees for licenses, the establishment and enforcement of compliance with professional standards of practice and the rules of conduct, consistent with the National Association of Social Workers Code of Ethics, the enforcement of those provisions in the law relating to the conduct or competence of social workers practicing in this territory, the investigation of any such activities related to the practice of unauthorized practice of social work, and the suspension, revocation, or restriction of licenses to engage in the practice of social work. With probable cause that an applicant has engaged in conduct prohibited by this act or statute or a rule enforced by the board may issue an order directing the applicant or licensee to submit to a mental or physical examination or chemical dependency evaluation. Another duty of the board is to collect professional demographic data, to issue and renew licenses, to evaluate non-social work degree holders for exemption from social work licensure, and the inspection of any licensed person at all reasonable hours for the purpose of determining if any provisions of the laws governing the practice of social work are being violated. The board, its officers, inspectors, and representatives shall cooperate with all agencies charged with the enforcement of the laws and territories relating to the practice of social work. All right, we have several testimonies submitted today in support of Mr. Baleto's appointment. These include testimony from Nadine Cepeda, the lead district school psychologist at the Guam Department of Education, from Sandra F. Berdalio, MA, LPC, MAC, from Dr. Lillian Ann Perez, from Jennifer Lynn Cruz, BSW, from Dr. Lisa Baza, PhD, LPC, LMPT, LMHC, So, Mr. Belletto, I want to thank you for your willingness to accept this appointment and for being here today for your confirmation hearing. At this point, I'd like to turn the mic over to you if there are any comments that you would like to present.
Senator, good evening, Hafa senators. Thank you for having me in this session. Comments, I think it's a great privilege to be a part of this body. The Guam Board of Social Work. It hasn't happened before. This is something new for our island. It helps to elevate our level of visibility in the community, gives us a lot of credit, and it's in line with social work values, and that primarily is in the work of service to people, and particularly for Guam, our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Belletto. I reviewed your nomination packet, and in there you filled out an application stating your experience and that you have no conflicts or business conflicts. And so part of your application shows that you are currently a Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center clinical supervisor for Project LINC, and that you are currently a licensed professional counselor and regular play therapist at the American Medical Center from 2016 to the present. And your career goes back, at least in social work, and it looks like you started at the Public Health CPS unit in 1992 as a social worker 1. Became a psychiatric social worker with Guam Behavioral Health in 1999. Medical social worker in California in 2007, and back to Guam and back to Guam Behavioral Health as a psychiatric social worker 2 in 2014. So I want to thank you for your service to Guam and in this profession especially. We know that, you know, it takes a toll on everyone, and you have to do extra to keep yourself healthy and able to handle the challenges that come with it. Do you believe that as a board member, and I'm asking you this because we are having issues with every board and the licensing board and their willingness and ability to enforce, you know, amongst a very small community, their peers pretty much, you know, to enforce the laws, to be the disciplinary board, in fact, and to go as far as, you know, revoking licenses when necessary, investigating. And so I wanted to ask you if you feel like you can do this in our small community, and how would you approach that?
Thank you. It's a very delicate balance. Like you pointed out, it's a very small community. It's a growing community of professionals. And with our emerging social work membership, it has become a challenge to establish the ethics that were held by a profession, and then to enforce that. Not sure if we have very many cases where disciplinary actions were taken against others in the profession, but I feel pretty optimistic that we will be able to assert the ethics that we're bound by. So yes, I have no qualms about restating what we're held by. I think emphasizing what our ethical standards and our licensing board upholds that. And so this is one way to be able to remind the professionals in our in the social work profession that there are standards that we're held to, and that we constantly are being reminded, and training is so key to preventing any infractions or dilemmas, social work ethical dilemmas.
All right, and you're appointed as the general public representative, but so you do have connections with a government agency and also with a private clinic, and but the board is overseeing social workers in all parts of the public and private, services. And so just want to make sure, do you think any of your involvement with either the agency or with the clinic would impede your ability to be impartial when deliberating on those in other clinics or other agencies, or even your own agencies and your own clinic?
Well, like we pointed out earlier, our community is small, and so there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of multiple relationships that many of us have with each other. And so that's part of the reality of being in a small community. And at the same time, there are professional expectations that are established that I think people in the community understands. And so having to enforce that or remind people, I think that there's a clear understanding that there's a duality in our roles.
All right, thank you. I'm going to turn it over now to Senator Adam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Half day, Mr. Bileto. How are you doing?
Good, half a day. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for answering the call of the governor to be a board member of the Guam Board of Social Workers. My question is to you. I know that you'll be appointed for the next 3 years. What would you like to accomplish during your term on the board?
Really to be efficient at processing the licenses that will be provided to a lot of the professionals out there. I know it's been a challenge to award these licenses, and I'm hoping that the team that I'll be a part of recognizes the urgency in trying to move towards having as many of our professionals licensed as possible. So it's a big challenge. There's a lot of questions. And I know members have come and gone, and it's really hard to reestablish your team every so many years. But I think that the members that are there have a commitment to moving that forward. So yes, I do think.
Yeah, you mentioned challenge twice, so that just brings me to my next question as to what would you like? I mean, is there something currently in statute or parts of rules and regulations that you like to see, or work towards change to improve the process to making our social workers, getting more social workers licensed on island?
I think the biggest challenge is establishing our fee schedules. That has been an issue being discussed in so many different forums. So I hope that can be established hopefully by the end of this year, if not earlier. So that I think that is one objective that the board will work really hard towards, as far as I know.
Well, that's good to hear. So I'm glad that you'll be able to, you know what the challenges are at this point in time. So working on the board and working with your board members to tackle that challenge. I look forward to seeing you more in the future and bringing down these issues to the legislature and bringing it up to the chairwoman so that she'll be able to address it, and we'll be able to work together and ensure that moving forward we can have, like you said, more social workers licensed, but addressing the issues that are challenging that tough hurdle there of the fee schedules and such. So I look forward to working with you. I look forward to your appointment on our next session, if that be possible, Madam Chair, to move this appointment forward and get you on the board so that we can be able to work together. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bileto. You have my support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ada. I'll now like to call on Senator Terlaje.
Buenas and good evening, Mr. Bileto. Thank you so much for stepping up to the plate as well. I think that it deserved my being here today. If you're willing to serve in this capacity, that I'd be here today to, to say thank you, for doing this. It's, reading through the board of, your responsibilities and social worker, it's very extensive, the amount of rules, regulations that you file, examiner's license, application for a license, just solely on social working alone is amazing. I mean, anyone sitting on the chiropractor board probably won't have it so much as it is quite lengthy, going through this whole entire document on social workers. And the good Senator Ada had asked a question too about what you're going to do, and I greatly appreciate that. But I do have a question for you with regards to there was one part in the legislation, or not the legislation, but the Guam Code Annotated Chapter 12 that says here, the collections that the board is responsible for the collections of professional demographic data. Mr. Bileto, what does that mean exactly? Would you know, or I know you're just getting your feet wet, and like I said, it's how many pages of just social worker stuff that, I know you can't memorize it all, but do you know exactly what that means? Yeah.
I think in part, who are those individuals that come from schools that social work schools? So we have on Guam assigned people with various degrees that are related to social work, that are working in the field, that have been working for many years. But they come from different training backgrounds. And so I think that's real key to be able to gather who are the people that come from the schools of social work, and who are those that come from related fields. That's key to be able to see, what are the trends that the community is needing, or what are the trends that we're meeting a particular need for our community. So that's one. Age, I think it's important, right? So we have those that people that have been in the field for many years, and probably looking towards retirement. So who are the people that are going to fill in their position? So that's part of the information that we're going to be gathering. And then what is the length of service that people stay in the profession? I think that's really key, because we're in so many different areas of human services. Some lend itself to a less stressful careers, and others where it's high levels of stress. So what are those areas? How do we meet those needs? If we can, and if we can't, how do we go about it?
Wow, thank you for that. It looks like it's an area that's very important and to have, moving forward. So whatever assistance that can be given, and I know that you're allowed to be collecting fees, some kind of fees. So sometimes this kind of collections or data cost money, to provide that data bank and get that going. So I wish you the very best, is particularly in that one. That one caught my eye. And you're right, there's so many different services in social workers that you were mentioning. And that's probably hence the extensive part of the medical practices. It's just very extensive in social worker. And that leads me to that next question. Is there a shortage of social workers on the island?
I think there are two parts to that, yes and no. The School of Social Work is producing students that come into entry-level positions and are responding to the need. And then there is a average time, I think, generally that people stay in the profession, as I pointed out a little earlier. So maybe that's where the gap lays, is people enter but don't make it their career, their lifelong career. And so that's probably where maybe the gaps may lay. And then demographics, I don't know what data that is collected to sort of support the statement that there is a shortage, you know, and if there is a shortage, what does that mean? Is it in child welfare? Is it in the mental health field? Is it in the drug and alcohol field? Is it in the correctional facility? So all these, I think, is data driven. And that's why I think demographics is really important to gather, so that we can be able to fill in where we don't know where the gaps are.
Very, very good, Jessica. Yeah, I really greatly appreciate your answers, and those answers just gave me a lot of confidence in my support for you in this position. So you have my support, Jessie. I greatly appreciate it, and my door is always open if there's anything I can do to assist you in doing a good job where you're going. So thank you so much. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Taitigui. I'll now recognize Senator Brown.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and certainly thank you as well to Mr. Boleto for stepping up to be appointed to this role here to serve on the Guam Board of Social Work. And I also appreciate the questions from the previous colleagues, Senator Adams, Senator Tello, with the questions that they had. Mr. Boleto, you mentioned that obviously there's some areas of social work that are a little more stressful than others. And I just wanted to get your feedback now, certainly with your expertise and your experience. Where do you think is the most challenging area of social work that we're experiencing now in our community?
Oh, that's really, I think, a loaded question. There's so many, there's a lot of overlap in the different fields of social work in education, right? There's, it's not just education, there's mental health concerns within the Department of Education. And then in child welfare, there's, that area is a real specialized area and highly stressful because of the heavy legal aspect. That's a really tough one for me to answer, because each area carries a unique set of burdens and unique set of skill set. And I can't really say one area is more stressful than the other, because all are equally in high demand for competency and for dedication. And so I think the whole field embodies a high level of stress. And I think a lot of times that's balanced out by the support that we get, not only from our leaders, but from our community. So I don't know if that makes any sense. It's that's a really tough question. I try to evaluate what those areas are. I think my field, in the field of mental health, specifically children's mental health, is very, very stressful, very demanding, and equally rewarding.
Do you see any trends though? I mean, certainly, you know, a little more services are available to children, for example, and others in our community than probably during our time growing up. You know, we never really heard about the work of social workers. Do you see any more stressors in our community now? I'm sure, you know, our young people now, they're growing up with all modern conveniences and technology, but perhaps the quality of life or maybe the family support system is not there. So I'm just really trying to get some insight into that. Do you see any more areas that are more challenging now in our community than maybe previously, since you've been working in this field, it's your educational background, some 30 plus years over time? Do you see anything maybe where there are more stressors now? Is it on our children? Is our seniors? What are your thoughts, just from your perspective, probably just to give us a little more insight as policymakers, what we should be mindful of, or where you're seeing that increased tension, perhaps, that maybe requires a little more awareness and attention on our part and on the rest of our community's part?
So perhaps the whole area of career and career paths and career options, and that might be of particular interest to a lot of youth, especially with more educated youth. What is the promise for a pretty a fruitful career path? That, I think, is a big stressor for not only the youth, but the parents who are trying to support their children towards a path that not only affords them a inviting career, but also keeps them on island. And that's really stressful when we're seeing a lot of young people looking outside of Guam to make a career. And it's stressful and it's very sad. So I think that's a big challenge for us and for the profession.
And how about in terms of the community? What is your gauge out there? I mean, you said, and I understand that every field there under social work and where that service is provided to our community, that there's a lot to balance there. But do you see over the years any trend for areas of concern we should be aware of in our community? Is there more pressure on our young people? Is it our elderly that are neglected? Or, I mean, what have you seen from your perspective in the years you've worked in your current profession?
For the youth, I think technology has been both an advantage in really elevating their level of knowledge, and also creates a level of vulnerability. So just the cyber exploitation, I think, is a major trend. I don't know too much about it. I just know it exists. The level of concerns that we should be at, I'm not sure. I think that's an area that we need to assess and evaluate, and continue to educate and discuss, bring up in conversations, both in this setting as well as within our families.
I see you graduated from the University of Hawaii in 1988. Did you graduate in the spring or fall semester?
I graduated in 1998, spring semester.
Oh, wonderful. Well, that's good. I'm also a former graduate of UH. So you certainly have a very impressive resume that you've provided in your career, and I appreciate your dedication in all that you do. And certainly thank you for stepping up to the challenge for serving in this current capacity that you are being appointed to. So thank you. And thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to be able to ask questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Did any of my colleagues have a follow-up question? All right. If not, then I just wanted to ask one more question. Do you think there will be any challenges to you attending the board meetings, considering your current professional involvements?
That's, I think, a challenge for all of us. I think the team that I'm going to be a part of has demonstrated flexibility, and that has Senator Brown has pointed out some themes. Flexibility during the pandemic has always been an issue that we bring up and remind ourselves, especially as it relates to our resilience. So I think it's a flexible team, and so I'm hoping that will continue.
All right. Now, there are some kind of current events that have highlighted the need for social workers on Guam. I think we've had for many years now a a shortage and a very high demand, and in government agencies as well as private and nonprofit entities that also employ social workers. And I know that the government has responded with scholarships and trying to, increase the ability of local students to get their masters as well in social work. Also, kind of flexibility in hiring and including, exemptions for retirees to come back or to continue to work in the government. And I know, in addition to hiring, that one of their goals is to try to decrease this turnover. And they discussed a high turnover rate in agencies dealing with welfare, such as CPS. And you described that you're working with children as well at behavioral health. And one of their, responses to this high turnover in these agencies are, they say they need clinicians to help social workers who are working in these fields to themselves, get the support that they need to continue. I just want to know if you support that, or if you have any other ideas as to how to decrease the turnover in these types of agencies or to support the retention.
Definitely clinicians working with young people. There are a lot of clinicians that have a particular interest in working with adults. When you bring up young people or children, there really is a lack of interest in that area because they are challenging in terms of understanding developmental needs, and then understanding the needs of families just in the island in general. And so you're not just working with one youth, but you're working with the whole family unit. And that's a challenge in and of itself. And so I think that's why there aren't as many clinicians entering into the field that want to work with young people and children. And that's the need of child welfare, is that they do need those clinicians that are specializing in working with young people and their families. I don't know how to go about it. It's a theme nationally, and the Association of Play Therapy, they highlight that in a lot of our trainings, that working with young people, it's even more stressful, and maintaining child therapists is a big challenge just from the national standpoint.
Well, thank you. I'm very encouraged by something you said, that despite the challenges or the huge challenges in working with children, that you find it equally rewarding. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that. So I'm just very happy to hear that, and I'm encouraged by it, and I'm hopeful that your service on the board with your experience and your passion for serving these children is going to help our board. And I do, as Senator Addis said, look forward to any recommendations that the board might have as to how to help in the, efficient licensing, the prompt, investigations of complaints, the recruitment and retention of social workers on Guam. So again, thank you again for your willingness to serve. There being no further testimony, we will consider this appointment duly heard, and the time is now 6:06 p.m. Sizus Masi, Mr. Beleto. Thank you.
Masi.
Thank you, Mr. Beleto. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will now address the second agenda item, which is the appointment of Nonito V. Blas to serve as a member of the Guam Land Use Commission for a term of 5 years, March 22, 2020 to March 21, 2025, to fill the seat of Conchita Bacon, whose term is expired. The Guam Land Use Commission approves rezoning requests, variances, and conditional use applications. They are charged by law, quote, to ensure that the people of Guam are not subjected to unbridled and unmanageable growth that would threaten the benefits, comforts, and privileges to which each Guam resident is entitled, unquote. They're also charged with the street naming plan, the Guam National Resources Board, which oversees mineral extractions and other mining on Guam. And the Guam Land Use Commission also serves as the enforcement arm of the Guam coastal management laws on Guam. So we've got one person signed up to testify, and that is the administrator of GITA, Melanie Mendiola, and I'd like to recognize her at this point. Ms. Mendiola.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me, Madam Chairwoman and senators. Yep, my name is Mel Mendiola, I'm the administrator of GITA, but tonight I'm testifying in my personal capacity as a family member of Nonito Blas Jr. He's affectionately known as Junior, just Junior in our family. Our moms are sisters. I've known him my whole life. I first met him when I was a flower girl in his wedding. He was a little bit older than me at the time. But for the most part, he was overseas as an officer in the military. And he recently retired. He came back home. And since then, he's expressed a strong desire to serve. And I fully support him in this endeavor. My cousin Junior, he's educated. You've seen his resume. He possesses both a bachelor's degree and an MBA. He's decorated in the US Navy. He's finished many trainings. I believe he's called I learned this at his retirement ceremony. He's called a Mustang, which is an individual who began as an enlisted person and then commissions later on in his career as an officer. And to me, I think that this demonstrates, this is really working your way up the ladder. It demonstrates his grit, his adaptability, his ability to persevere, and not only to survive, but to thrive as a Chamorro man in the US Navy. Now he's back home. He didn't skip a beat. He immediately became involved in the community. He's a Knight of Columbus, a member of the Santa Teresita Church, a member of the Young Men's League of Guam. Most importantly, he's a caretaker for his aging parents, former Mayor of Manila, Nonito Blas Sr., and my Auntie Doring. He's a model citizen and a son of Guam. He's a musical guy. You'd really enjoy jamming with him, Senator Tello. And he's a member of the Republican Party. I believe that Governor Lulian Guerrero nominated him because she sees more than anything a desire to give back. I think his resume speaks for itself. I think but I think more than that, my cousin has the ability to connect with people and to understand and to listen. It's really honored. It's an honor for me as a younger cousin who was a flower girl in his wedding that he asks me about government and that I share with him my thoughts and what I think about what's going on, and he shares with me what he thinks is going on. We have great discussion. We don't always agree, but that's okay because fighting with family is pretty normal. But I believe all of this. I believe that through his lens, as a retired service member, as a Chamorro son of Guam, as a son, as a husband, a father, a cousin, and a friend, that he sees our island, he'll view our island through this lens and listen to many, many points of view and not judge. And I think he'll act deliberately and with sound judgment. I don't think for my cousin that learning ever stops. I'm excited to see that he continues to evolve, even in this next iteration of his career. And I'm excited to see him on the GLUC. I testified in favor or in support of Dr. Anita Borja Enriquez some months ago. I believe that her personality and his, I think they'll get along just fine. Again, I know that there are many differing points of view, especially when it comes to things as sensitive as land use. I believe my cousin listens. I think he's very respectful. And more than anything, I think he puts the people of Guam and our island, the welfare of our island first. And for that reason, I encourage members of the body to confirm the appointment of Nonito Blas Jr. Swiftly and unanimously, and get him to work so we can get all those permits through and all those different things done over at the Guam Land Use Commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Administrator Mendiola. Very much appreciate your testimony on this nomination. All right, Mr. Blas, Nonito, I'm just going to disclose that you were class of 81 like myself. And so that's a good thing. Kidding. All right. So from your resume, you know, it's clear that you are currently serving as a Guam EPA board of director, one of the board of directors. You were confirmed in February 2020. And of course, so the testimony has indicated your military background, your educational background, and I too am very grateful that you're willing to serve after coming back to Guam and taking care of your parents, that you're still willing to serve in government service. I'm going to ask you a couple questions here as to whether you have any businesses or other interests that may be a conflict to you performing your duties as a member of the Guam Land Use Commission.
I have no business conflicts. The only conflict is the EPA. I understand I can't serve both on the EPA board and the Guam Land Use Commission. So my intent was that if I get confirmed here tonight, that I would resign from the EPA board, and the chairman of the EPA board knows that.
All right.
So, yeah.
Well, the confirmation.
Other than that, no conflicts.
All right, great. Well, technically, the confirmation occurs on voting. So I'll send you the date of when we expect our next session to be, towards the end of March. And so that's when we expect to vote on your confirmation in front of the whole body. So tonight, we're just hearing testimony and questions from the senators. All right. And but thank you for your service on the Guam EPA board. Did you find any challenges there that you think you might also face at the Guam Land Use Commission? And have you worked out, you know, kind of best practices in dealing with those?
You know, having been, it might be the second board, but the way Chairman Hearn runs the EPA board, I would hope to carry that forward to the Guam Land Use Commission, because that EPA board, in my opinion, is very efficient, very effective. Just like Mel said, we'll listen to both sides. We do, as the EPA board, hold violators accountable. At the same time, the EPA board does try to help our island. Perfect examples, you know, with the revolving fund to the mayors. So I hope to carry that to the Guam Land Use Commission.
All right. The you know, recent Guam Land Use Commission has for years, many years, always faced challenges. You know, so they're supposed to process all these applications. Sometimes there are delays, and the developers get you know, quite upset with the government and find the entire government inefficient. But you know, we've tried to narrow down that process and to where those inefficiencies are or could be bettered, where the delays are, and you know, we need the help of the commission in this work. And that if you're seeing delays as well, if you could help us to you know, for everyone in the process outside of the commission to, you know, help them to find how they can move forward. Department of Land Management is kind of doing that on their own right now, but I'm hoping that the will get a little bit more involved in assisting everyone else to be a coordinated response, a swift, an efficient response by the government to these applications, and a thorough response as well. You know, by being efficient, I don't think we need to shortcut on, you know, protections or that are necessary for the people's welfare.
Right.
Yeah, we are fortunate now that we do have a commission that is seems to be meeting quorum and having meetings regularly. So, so I'm looking forward.
You know, that's one thing on the EPA board that we have never had any problems with meeting a quorum, and I intend to do that. I have perfect attendance with the EPA board. I don't see any problems with me going to any of the Guam Land Use Commission meetings.
All right, that's great. Thank you again. I'm going to open the questions up to the panel, beginning with Senator Ada. Oh, I'm sorry, if I could also recognize the presidents of the minority leader, Senator James Moylan. Thank you, Senator Moylan, for joining us as well. We have Senator Ada, Senator Brown, Senator Terlaje with us tonight. All right, Senator Ada, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Mr. Blas. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Doing fine.
That's good. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for the record, that my wife is closely related with the nominee, Nonito Blas. So we do have close family ties. But that with that being said, though, you know, I was looking over his resume, and you know, when I got down to the part of his service to our country, you know, it said Captain. I said Captain Navy. I had to go back and think. Captain is actually a colonel in the United States Army. So, sir, you know, my hat's off to you. Thank you for your dedication and service to our country, and now service to our island. Just like I asked Mr. Beleto, what would you like to accomplish on the board in the next 5 years that you're there, and you know, the things that you've seen, and probably things that you heard about in the media regarding the GLUC?
Well, the first one is make sure we follow the zoning laws, follow the rules. Number two, public input is very, very important.
Exactly.
Very important. And the third thing, again, reducing the time to get permits. That's what I hope to accomplish in the 5 years.
Yeah, so you notice that, well, you know, I think the GLUC had issues trying to make quorum or meeting to get these permits issued during the past several months. And now we have this backlog where, you know, we just got so many things going on that a bill had to go through the legislature to get passed so that we can get these temporary workforce housing out onto the worked on. Do you think that we will see that type of issue come up again, or are you hoping that we'll be able to address these issues before they become a problem?
Yeah, again, that's the function of the commission, to be able to get in front of those issues. I mean, for example, at some point we're going to allow more foreign workers to the island, right? And we're going to have to house them somewhere. So we got to get in front of that workforce housing, because you know it's going to be contentious when we figure out where do we want to put them. Where do we want to build that workforce housing? So we need to get in front of that and things like that. Again, just like the governor is trying to do, we can't depend on tourism anymore. There's got to be other ways we bring revenue to the islands, and to attract wealthy companies, wealthy talent to the island, we have to have a pretty island, an island that they want to bring their families to and live.
Yeah, that's great to know, and that knowing that you want to follow what, you know, is before us in statute, and ensuring that the zoning laws are followed, ensuring that you know, everything that is followed to a T, and just not try to circumvent the law or shortcut. You know, I really appreciate that, and you know, hopefully that we'll be able to get your nomination onto the next legislative session agenda, and I look forward to voting for your nomination. But that's all the questions I have. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Senator. Senator Terlaje, you are recognized.
This must be Madam Speaker, Madam Chair. Nito,
Hey.
I can tell you one thing, the oversight chair of EPA, Senator Parrish, she's going to be very upset you're leaving there. I mean, with the wealth of knowledge you have, nuclear background. I mean, I was there at your the confirmation hearing for you when you were going to EPA, and everybody was so excited about it. But I'm sure that your choice to leave to go to Guam Land Use Commission, it's in dire need as well. And I think it's a great fit. Well, you know, like Mel said, well, she mentioned about being a musician. The whole family is, you know, musically inclined. And, you know, I bring that up because, you know, put a musician anywhere, they're going to do great. But I'm biased, right? Mel, we need to talk. I need to find out if you got some musical background. I had no idea. I know I'm also related by my mom who is also your mom. There's a relation with the Kokure side, the Cepeda side.
Yeah.
So we are related to as well. So for his full disclosure, I want to make that for full disclosure, but I think there's more of a musician heart there that we're really connected to, and your brothers are amazing. And one thing, Nito, you know what you're so blessed to have is all your brothers, you know, your family, your mom, your dad, the whole family. They're so supportive. And whenever you're doing something like this Guam Land Use Commission, I mean, it could be very, you know, intense.
Yeah.
Very intense. We have family members will approach you, things
Yep.
like that. And, you know, just having your family to back you up to stay the course is so important. But I have some good news, Nito. Today, we just passed legislation that forces the ARC, you know, to get all those documents prepared and ready, you know, and reviewed so that you can move forward with the Guam Land Use Commission. I mean, we even put some teeth to that. So they have a certain amount of time to provide that documentation that's needed to move forward to get these people the permits that they need and grow our economy like that. And I wish you the very best. Again, you know, being here was my pleasure, and I want to thank you again for continuing to serve. And please give my very best to the family. Okay.
I will. Thanks, Senator. Thanks. Hello.
Thank you, Nita. Take care. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Taitakuri. Senator Brown, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and certainly very appreciative as well of Mr. Nonito Blas and wanting to continue his public service. I got to spend a little more time with him and learning and talking with him during the campaign last year when he was running for the CCU. And I just think it shows that in the very short time that he's been back home, that he's very active in wanting to extend his public service. And I think that's something that's very, very commendable. I did want to ask Mr. Blas with regards to what his perspectives are now in this new capacity that he's been appointed to the Guam Land Use Commission, because certainly I myself have had so much, almost a love-hate relationship with the Guam Land Use Commission, just because of how traditionally projects in the past, particularly major development projects, have been approved, and to what degree those issues take into consideration the interests and concerns of the community and the infrastructure limitations that some of these areas have where developers might want to build major projects. So I just wanted to get his thoughts and perspective of how does he see his views on those type of issues, you know, coming up in his community. I mean, his family lives in an area where, you know, something as large as the Ladera Towers was built that's totally incompatible with anything surrounding it. So I just wanted to get his ideas on how he looks at land use issues and you know, those challenges that definitely will come before him as a member. What are his priorities in terms of what he will be looking for?
Well, step one in the decision-making process is how is it going to benefit the people of Guam? That's just number one. Number two, how is that going to affect the environment, right? Because we want to maintain sustainable environment. Now, Senator Brown, I just happened in my research, saw your testimony when they wanted to change the zone there across from FD, and the
yes,
public
that was many years ago. Yes, it's actually a Solace property across the Father Duenas.
Right.
They wanted to build warehouses there.
Right, and again, that's where the public input, and then being able to kind of to balance the needs of the island as a whole, and how, like Ladera Tower. I grew up in Miguel when we didn't have water pressure because of Ladera Tower.
Yes.
When my dad was the mayor, we would get called all times, say, Mayor, there's no water, and, you know, because maybe we should have done something with GWA prior to putting Ladera Tower. So those are the kind of things I would ask. Well, you're going to put the Ladera Tower in my backyard. How is that going to affect water, sewage to my neighbors? So that's part of that decision-making process. And again, public comment, getting the professionals, the land management professionals all in the same room, lay out all the issues, and then that's where the Land Commission takes all those issues with the priorities of the island, we make a decision.
You know, I also wanted to ask you, because in today's session, you know, Senator Tello had mentioned the bill that she had sponsored to actually putting financial penalties with regards to ARC members responding to applications and timelines that are put before them. And then we also had a bill that was sponsored by our good speaker with regards to having the conditions that are set by the Guam Land Use Commission on a project to essentially follow that project through permitting and certainly through Department of Public Works. Because we found in review of these issues, which I've always speculated over the years since I was a Guam EPA 30 years ago, is that while the Guam Land Use Commission sets conditions perhaps to make a project, historically they've created conditions to make a project fit even when it didn't. Because you could put anything on paper and say, well, you're going to do this, this, and this, and it's going to add up and we're not going to have problems. We're not going to have issues with it. But we're finding out, obviously, as time has gone on, that there's really no mechanism right now to ensure that those conditions that are set by the Guam Land Use Commission are adhered to. I know the speaker relayed to us the other day that this other project here in Pago Bay, where they built these residential houses below the cliff of where the medallions used to live, that they are in the process of hopefully finalizing the reinternment of ancestral remains that they removed almost like 12, 13 years ago. And one of the conditions, obviously, in their condition with the Land Use Commission was to properly reintern. And they said, well, they had a lot of obstacles and maybe there were, maybe they weren't. But there's also a certain degree of public outcry that came in order to see that issue paid attention to by the developer. The developer actually was trying to put that onus on an adjacent property that developer had sold to another investor. And that was to build, these 2 14 and 15-story high-rise condos in Pago Bay without addressing that on the original mother lot, that this condition was placed in. And so we're finding there's no consistency, there's no follow through. And I'm sure that's something on our end at the legislature, we're going to want to look a little further on how can we guarantee that there's a constant effort to make sure that when the Land Use Commission does set conditions to make a project workable for the community and for the project ultimately, that there's follow through. So we don't have 10, 15, 20 years later where there's nobody following up to make sure at the time the projects were approved that what commitment they made to the people of Guam is followed through with and that they make those additional investments. You mentioned Ladera. I mean, not only was there not water pressure, they were supposed to upgrade the sewer line, upgrade the road. None of those things happened prior to the construction of the project that didn't even have a building permit for the first 4 floors. And it just kind of shows you how out of hand, even though that project was a number of years ago, there's many different levels of that sort of thing happening now in our community where our regulatory agencies are not as aggressive as they need to be in following up. So I just want to get your feedback on that.
Oh yeah, money is a great motivator. So if we penalize these companies, these agencies, and frequent follow-up by the commission, that the goal would be to fix all that, hold people accountable, frequent updates to the commission, and any kind of monetary punishment or just to motivate them to do the right thing.
I appreciate that. And I think that's something certainly the legislature will look towards. It's almost like taking a file and you do status checks on it until everything's, all the conditions are met. It might be over a period of several years that certain things have to happen, but that publicly anybody can look at the status of a project and know that project is compliant. And the other thing from a public standpoint that I've seen that there needs to be strengthened, and it's one of the reasons I didn't vote today on the legislation to fast track the construction of the barracks for the workers that are needed for the buildup, was the one thing that was taken out of that legislation was essentially the public input process. And, of course, we recognize the pandemic, but a lot of other agencies have gotten, including the Guam legislature, of ensuring a vehicle for public input during this pandemic to make sure that, the voice of our people are heard. But even prior to the pandemic, when village meetings were held, as in the case most recently with this Pago Bay development, there was a public meeting that had been held in the village of Jonia, and there was, except for one commission member who refused to come up to the front of the room and be identified as such, no commission member sat in on those meetings. Those meetings were only held by staff, and that to me, was unfortunate because the public, there were 100+ people that showed up that evening on this issue that were very concerned about it. but to the degree of the commission members themselves seeing it, feeling it, and witnessing it, it wasn't there.
Yeah.
I mean, we go down to the Guam Land Use Commission meeting, and we're in the back row chair, and you know, the commission members are very removed. There's no microphones for us even to audibly hear what's being said or what decisions are made. And when alterations are made to the project, the public doesn't have any vehicle to be able to have any input in that process, because the public is often looked at as the real obstacle, rather than how can we partner to make sure that it's a quality development, and if it's in the right place with the right conditions, you know, there's a benefit to the community, rather than almost the public being locked out, because we were never allowed to even have any follow-up comments. And it just was because of the developer's inability to meet requirements that eventually the land use, after almost 2 years and our consistent objections, you know, finally the commission pulled their initial approval. So those are the kind of frustrations that, and me, I'm a vocal member of the community, but many other people, you know, may have similar concerns in their neighborhood, but are not able to unite. I mean, we had to take that case to court and pay money out of our own pocket to hire an attorney to represent our concerns as a community, but not everyone's going to have that degree of organization in their respective areas. So I just wanted to get your feedback on that as well.
No, I agree 100%. Holding corporations, contractors accountable, making sure they're following the conditions and giving the commission frequent updates, and at the same time, make it accessible to the public. I couldn't understand why a commission member wouldn't show up to those public meetings.
Yeah, they just don't. I mean, the staff essentially is the ones that you know, conduct that meeting, and the public, everybody can't come to every meeting. That meeting fortunately was held, you know, around 6 p.m, so that people could come after work and actually participate. But even myself, I mean, it started because, you know, my family, you know, owns property within 500 feet. So we actually, you know, received a formal notice from land management. But once, you know, our mayor, for example, was not aware of it until I brought it to his attention. So it's just, how do we facilitate getting that information out there so that the affected community from the very beginning, you know, is aware of it? And if it's something that they agree to, how can we make it fit so that it's a complement to the community, rather than looked at as something that's parasitic and it's going to take away water, you know, water pressure, water quality, you know, and power resource, all those things, basic things that long-term residents want to continue to see in their community, including safety and quality of life. So,
well, that should be the commission's priority. Number one is how do we let the public know, and how do we invite them into the process? That should be the priority of the commission.
You know, I appreciate it. Madam Speaker and everyone else, I don't have a direct, I can't say Mr. Blas is my first cousin or anything, but I know your brother Kenny worked with my dad at SRF for many years, and my parents and your parents have known each other over the years as well. And again, I really admire your interest in public service, and the expertise that you bring to the table is going to be a benefit, whichever, you know, today it's the Land Use Commission, it's Guam EPA, and certainly your interest in running for the CCU is really, really commendable. I mean, I admire the fact that in your short time back, you're really wanting to dive in and make Guam better. So thank you very much for your interest in serving, especially such a challenging commission. And thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to be able to ask questions of Mr. Blas. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Brown. I'd like to now recognize the Minority Leader, Senator Moylan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Blas, thank you for accepting the nomination. I think you're ready to go. You got all that experience, that's for sure. And what I'm really looking forward is that you'll be able to call things out. You're going to call it out as, hey, this is working great. You're going to call it out as like, this is terrible, man. We got to do something about this. This is a big problem. It can't go on this way, right? I want you to look at me, and maybe our other senators too, as you can call us out too. If something needs to be changed in the law to help you out, we want to do something. And you can point it out exactly where it needs to be changed and how this could help the people, then that's our duty. So, Madam Chair, I'm looking forward to his nomination moving forward. And full disclosure, I have his number and he has mine. We're a class of 81, and that's Father Dwayne is. And let everybody know he's doing a great job of being the secretary, because we're going to be celebrating our 30th reunion. So 40th. Oh my gosh, I even lost count. 40th reunion. So I'm glad he's there. And I think he's a great candidate. I'm looking forward to supporting him when we get this on session floor. So thank you, Nito.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'd like to thank my colleagues for their questions. I think they really flushed out a lot of the answers that I was also looking to, and of how, you know, the Guam Land Use Commission, I think it has a good process, and if we can, you know, honor the parts of the process that honor public input, please continue to do that. Guam Land Use publishes, I think it has one of the best publications of their agenda. It's very detailed, you know, in the newspapers. Everybody knows or could know what you're dealing with. But I agree with, if the commissioners could attend these meetings that are being held in the municipalities, you're going to hear it firsthand, as opposed to reading it in paper, and as opposed to being told about it by you know, the director of land management or any of the land management staff. But hearing testimony and from the residents who are going to be impacted, I just think is the most important part of the process. Can I just clarify on your record, you have an MBA and your bachelor's degree, can I ask what that is?
In business administration.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, your military record describes you as serving as chief engineer from 2011 to 2014 on one of the ships, I think, right? And
Nuclear powered aircraft carrier. Yep.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And the and as I said earlier, yeah, retired captain, 38 years, and thank you again for that. And I'm hoping that your experience there and with EPA is actually, I'm very happy about that. Like, I think, you know, at our oversight hearing, one of the delays that was mentioned was EPA's review of applications is so detailed and involves so many regulations that they are responsible for, that it's time consuming and it takes some time. So of course we're looking for a balance of thoroughness and efficiency. And so I think you're the perfect person to bring that to this board. So thank you. And again, thanks to my colleagues. And there's no other testimony for tonight. I just please give our regards to your dad and your mother. Thank you. And there being no further testimony, the committee will consider the appointment of Lonita V. Blas to the Guam Land Use Commission duly heard. It is 6:39 p.m. Thank you. This public hearing is now adjourned.
Thanks.